Hi, my name is Mick Rach, and I gotta talk about some Scroogey things that are going on. That's why I'm wearing my Christmas tie, my decorative neck piece. And these Scroogey things are gonna tie into both the government and commercial insurances and some of the audit findings we're finding. I'm the president of Vachette Pathology and Stark Medical Auditing, and I have a few things I want to chat about today. First of all, if you're in Ohio or New Jersey or Minnesota or even California, look for us. We'll be attending your local Pathology Society meeting there. We're now working in 49 states, and I'm proud to say we just signed a group in Alaska. So that's a good thing for us. Let's talk about some changes that are taking place right now in both pathology and other specialties. We're going to talk a little about some billing issues. We're going to talk about some audit findings, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the governmental changes that are taking place. First, let's talk about some of the things we've seen lately in the billing world. We've seen some interesting contracts from billers lately. For example, there's one that charges $35 extra to work any account before it goes to collections. They also charge $35 to handle any audit that they're asked to do. This doesn't make sense to me, and it probably shouldn't make sense to you. Check your billing contract for such a clause. We have another biller that, and you're not going to believe it when I tell you this, they add 30% to every account that goes to collections. They said they've already done a lot of work, so they want more. We find this to break numerous laws and it'd be a huge compliance issue. Again, if your biller's adding money to an account after they build it for both government and self-pay accounts and then sending it to collections, you're going to want to pay attention to something like that. Next thing going on in the billing world is the new credit card technology, the EMV technology. Credit cards now have a chip in them. And if you use an old credit card to process a payment and you don't have the chip, well, you're going to be responsible for any fraud that happens. This is going to be interesting in the billing world because it's all electronic. It should be interesting to see how it plays out. Ask your biller if they're EMV compliant. PQRS is another thing we're struggling with. Many groups are seeing letters now saying that they're going to be dinged 2% because of their non-compliance in 2014. If you go on the CMS portal and try to find this, you'll find that the portal will let you go almost to the end and then kick you out. It's a very frustrating thing for us and for our billers. And the question you got to ask yourself is, who's checking your PQRS compliance? Is it your biller, or do they expect you to do that? If you have to do that, you better get on it, or you're going to lose 2%. If you need help with that, don't be afraid to look us up. RAC audits. There's going to be some changes with these RAC audits. RAC audits are a 20% finding audit that private companies use to look at Medicare. Medicare hired some companies and they said, listen, if you find a fraud and lost money, it's yours. You get to keep 20% of it. Well, 2016 is going to have some interesting changes for RAC audits. First, they're going to be able to audit less claims to get the same volume. Instead of looking at 5% of your Medicare claims, they're going to be able to look at 0.2% of your Medicare claims. And if they find, 0.5% of your Medicare claims, and if they find issues, they're going to come get the money. Second, they have something called the additional documentation rate. This ADR is the claims they look at. And what they've determined that if you have a lot of denials to CMS, you're going to be more likely to be audited and they're going to be more likely to ask for additional documentation. So ask yourself this, if you have denials from CMS, are you putting yourself at risk? Absolutely. Be aggressive. Look at that. Know those denials. ICD-10, well, that took place October 10th or October 1st. We're starting to see some changes now. I have to ask you on your compliance side, are you compliant on ICD-10? Have you changed your compliance rules in your practice? Take a good look at that, because if you still have ICD-9 and now it's ICD-10, you're going to need to make those changes. The next thing I want to talk about is something called the Protecting Access to Medicare Act, PAMA. This is an act that came out with some changes for the clinical lab fee schedule. And basically they said, this just affects all doctors, Medicare said, we know that if we outsourced all our clinical lab work to one company, we'd save a lot of money. So we want all the companies that we work with now to tell us how much they're being paid. So now if you're a clinical lab or you're an anatomic lab and you meet the criteria, you're going to have to push money back or push EOBs back to Medicare to tell them how much you're being paid. So for example, if you're getting paid 60% of Medicare, you're going to have to report this through the actual EOB verified by your CFO to Medicare. And we all know what Medicare is going to do with that. They're going to drive down payment. We've seen it. We see a whole template in this, in the way this is laid out. There's a 10% and then 15% decreases coming once they look at this. We have until November 24th to comment on that. Get a comment in on that. If you have any questions on that, again, look us up on our website or call us. Our office number is 517-486-4262. We can get you hooked up and we can give you the comments that you need to say. Let's talk a little bit more about government. Well, there's some reconciliation things going on right now. The House passed a Reconciliation Act. It's at the Senate. What they're trying to do is change some Obamacare rules, and we know the Senate's not going to pass this. And tied into all this is Planned Parenthood and how that plays out. What we think will happen when it's all said and done is there won't be much changes. The one good piece of information is the Cadillac tax. You might remember the Cadillac tax is an extra tax on any employer that offers a very nice insurance plan. Well, why would you tax insurance plans? The goal is this. If you tax all the big insurance plans, you force everybody into Obamacare. That's exactly what they're trying to do. The good news is the Cadillac tax might not pass and it might be repealed. We're hoping for that. Second, let's talk about healthcare exchanges. We got New York, Tennessee, Iowa, Nebraska, Louisiana, Nevada, and Colorado. They've all closed. The healthcare exchanges closed. Colorado closed, for example, and they spent $73 million. Let's take a look at Kentucky, for example. Kentucky, they had 51,000 people covered. They lost that coverage. They spent $146 million to do this exchange, and for every dollar that they brought in, they spent $1.58. This is just bad business. They lost a ton of money, and these people no longer have coverage. When you talk to the Obamacare administration about this, they said that these 11 states that have closed their exchanges are doing it because we haven't given them enough money. And I would argue that's just a ridiculous number. Oregon, for example, lost 151,000 people. There's going to be about 400,000 people that are going to lose Obamacare when these exchanges close. And the number in lost revenue is probably close to $300 or $400 or $500 million that we put into these exchanges, and they've just went out of business. It's like the government giving you $146 million to run a company and you running it into the ground in less than a year. It just didn't work. Obamacare had a great concept about access. It had no concepts about cost or revenue, and we're seeing that penalty right now. In fact, I want to end on this note. The New York Times came out with an article recently that said, yeah, everyone's got great health insurance coverage now. They have coverage, but the high deductibles are so bad in these plans that most people can't pay it. Again, imagine you're a family of 4, you're making $60,000 a year, your deductible out of pocket is $5,000 or $10,000. You basically don't see your health care provider because you can't afford it. You can't afford 1/10 of your income to go to that. And by the way, you're also paying, $500 or $600 a month for that bad insurance plan. The truth is the government's out of money. We've got to find a different way to do this, and the current plan isn't working. Is fee-for-service going to work? Well, that's doubtful also. I'm waiting for the day when we see a 15% across-the-board cut to all providers. When you look at the SGR fix we talked about last time, and that 0.05% they're supposed to give you, what you should know is that when it's all said and done, if the government's not making money, they don't have to pay you anything at all, nothing. So be aware, going forward, the Federal Register is coming out with the new Medicare fee schedules. You should know how it's going to affect your practice. Run a revenue projection. Don't go into next year or next quarter not knowing if your money's going up and down. You should run your business like any other business with good revenue projections, good cost projections, and a good overall review of your EBITDA and how it plays out. Again, my name is Mick Rach. I'm the president of Stark Medical Auditing and Vachette Pathology. My office number is 517-486-4262. If you have questions about this and you're as passionate as I am, give me a call. I'll do my best to help. Thank you.